Okay, welcome back folks. In this video, I want to walk you through a setup for Friday, 8th of August in the New York session at my favorite time, which is in that 9:45 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. time zone. Now, full disclosure, I did not trade this setup. I was already done for the day. I took a small loss in London and then a nice win after that, and I was done for the day. Also, Friday was a NFP day, okay? And typically I don't trade those days, even though the times that I trade in New York is usually after the news events. Now, before I walk you through the setup, and it's on gold, I want to walk you through a snippet of my daily bias video where I forecasted the high that I was expecting the New York session to print. So let's have a very quick listen to a snippet of the daily bias video, and then we will continue because that's important for the setup that I'm going to discuss in this video. Okay, so let's now go up into a daily chart, and we've obviously got a fair value gap, okay, on the daily chart. Now, let's also bring up the chart of silver. So we've got a chart of gold on the left and a chart of silver on the right. And what I want you to notice is these highs, right? This high is in very close proximity to the high that we made yesterday, okay? And you can see the same thing here on silver. So they've left this high intact, right? Okay, coming up here close to it and then stopping. So I think that during the news announcement today, they will most likely get up to there. And the high that we should mark out is actually going to be this one because that's the closest high, okay? And I think we are going to get an SMT, right? Where silver's pretty close, so silver will probably sweep that in the news announcement today. And I think gold will take this one and not its swing high. We'll see. It could take it, but I think there's going to be an SMT. So overall... Okay, so you can see that was my target for Friday. Now, if we go to the charts, we can see that is where we've gone through. Okay, so I'm going to now switch over to a 5-minute chart. Now, remember, my time in which I like to trade is in New York session around at 9:45 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. Now, this is the news announcement. And what we know, if we go back and study news announcement events, is that we typically get a large move in a particular direction. And often that is then either completely wiped out, meaning that we come back down to the lows, or we get some kind of a retracement. Okay. Now, this red line is the high that I mentioned on the daily chart. Okay. Now, remember, my time to look for a setup is around 9:45 to 10:15 a.m. So if I see a massive candle like this, then I'm going to be looking to fade that, so long as I have a valid setup in the time that I like to identify those setups. The first thing that I do is I mark out the midpoint of any fair value gap that's been presented there. So we can see this massive print up on this 5-minute time frame. We have a bullish fair value gap. That's the midpoint. Okay. Now, so see that we have a bearish fair value gap that's been printed, and that has been printed after the news announcement. That's important, okay, because I don't want to be trading within this news candle. So it's much away from the news announcement time zone, okay? And I also want you to notice that that bearish fair value gap has been printed inside of a macro time, okay? You can see the time on the bottom there. It's within the 850 macro, okay? The other thing that I want to see is I want to make sure that there is liquidity engineered at or near the target. So if I'm going to use this bearish fair value gap as an entry to go short, and I'm going to be targeting the midpoint of this huge imbalance, then I want to see liquidity engineered just above where I think this is going to reprice lower to. Okay, so a few things to note. One, we have engineered liquidity, right, just above the midpoint of our fair value gap. That's important. We also have a previous high. Okay, so there's confluence now between the midpoint of the fair value gap and the previous high that we've gone through, where the market may want to reach down into, in essence, to rebalance price, okay, delivery, because we've gone through that previous high on the left, which is that daily level that I mentioned at the start of the video, right? And that's what that red line is. And now we need to essentially come down to it. So a few things that are important that make this a high probability short setup if it presents at the right time, which I haven't discussed yet, from this PD array. Okay. Now, those things are, we have liquidity, okay, and the midpoint of the fair value gap at the target, right? So slightly above where I believe price is to reprice down into. Okay, so that's important. You must have some of those things. And the midpoint is close to that previous high that we've gone through. Okay, so there's confluence there and there's liquidity. Okay, so the market comes up into the bearish fair value gap printed within the macro. Now, this is also the first macro after the news announcement. The news announcement was at 8:30, and this is now the 8:50 macro, which is that first macro, right? Which is where, if we are going to have a pullback, right, that's where I would expect PD arrays to form that I can use to frame a short setup from. So it must be within a macro time. That's important. Okay. Now, coming back up into that PD array also needs to be within a macro time. And for me, it's where is my favorite time to identify setups, right? That 9:45 to 10:15 a.m. So we now, after engineering liquidity, okay, so there's going to be folks who are long, right, from here, and they're going to have their stops below, right? Okay, that swing low. So after engineering liquidity, we go back up and look at the time. We are now within, this is the 9:40 to 9:45 a.m. time. We're coming up into this premium PD array in the form of this bearish fair value gap that was printed inside of a macro. Okay, so that's where I would look to take a short entry, stops above the high, which is also a daily high. Okay, and my target would be partials beneath this engineered liquidity, partials again at the midpoint, and then full position to close at the previous high that we've gone through. Remember that high is a daily level, which was the projected target on this move up. Okay, as I said, full disclosure, I didn't take this setup, but it is a high probability setup that I look for when we have these high impact news events where we have a large movement in the market and we need to come back and rebalance such a large repricing. Okay, go back, study the charts. We had similar price action at similar timing on the indices as well. Go back and study historical news events where you have had large price movements and see if you can identify higher probability setups where the market needs to come back and do some rebalancing. Okay, don't take my word for it. You've got to go back, you've got to study the charts and prove for yourself. Okay, hope the video is useful. I look forward to talking with you in a future lesson.